Hello and welcome to this week's episode. Today I'm joined by Thomas Olivier. He is a genetic expert and somebody I've known for a few years since doing my nutrigenetic training. This is actually an add-on to the episode with Shania, as I actually did my GenSmart training a couple of years ago with Shania and Thomas. Now, this episode is another functional health one, but this is really quite in depth, but also the whys and what fors. It's going to come out in time just as Thomas's platform goes live, so Omnos Me, which is a fabulous looking platform, very nice to use, easy questions, and again, this is about that that approach of N=1 that we've been discussing and how you can move your health forward. Now, hopefully, by the time this episode goes out, we will be out of lockdown and maybe we'll be moving back into an environment where we are really interested in taking care of our health. So I would suggest you listen to Thomas's beautiful accent. He is French, and throughout this interview, he really does go quite interestingly deep, but not too deep that you won't be able to understand it. It is a fabulous episode. And at the end of it, hopefully Omnos Me will be up and running, because maybe this will be out just before the 24th, 25th of May. If not, it'll be a couple of days either side. Obviously, it depends on what's happening with lockdown. It depends on what's happening with the sound editor and, you know, for most of us, what we're all doing. So if we're still in lockdown, if we're still in the process of going back out, be well, everybody. Stay safe, be careful, look after yourself. See you soon. Welcome to Cyber Synapse. This week, I'm joined by Thomas Olivier, and he is the CEO of Omnos Me, and also, I'm going to say a genetics expert. I met Thomas a few years ago doing some nutrigenetic and nutrigenomic training. And fast forward a couple of years and, you know, we're right bang in the middle of this COVID outbreak, Thomas. And yeah, let's start at the beginning about the technology of Omnos, which is a platform that you've developed, and why we'll get into that. So first of all, you're looking absolutely superb, considering that everybody's running around like headless chickens at the moment. So,
thank you.
Yeah, so welcome, Thomas. And would you like to begin, you know, how come Omnos exists? Why do you do what you do? And let's start at the beginning.
Well, might take long. How did I get to Omnos? I think, you know, my background is sports science. And I want to talk about the background first, because this is how I got to where I am now with Omnos. And I first was coaching athletes to reach their optimal. Okay, but one thing that I quickly realized is what was working for someone was not necessarily working for someone else, and I was quite determined to give a better service and to try to understand what was making them different. So I knew about the training, and knew about all this, the science behind it. But at the time, we were just talking about DNA, just understanding what it was. So I'm talking about almost 15 years ago. But what I really decided to do is to look actually into someone's DNA, to understand what was making them different, and maybe what, if I could, do something different from each of my patients at the time, my clients, to optimize their performance, their health, because obviously health is related to their performance, improve their sleep, nutrition, try to reach optimal nutrition. And this is where I started some research, contacted some labs which were wondering who the hell I was, because, to be interested at, the question of DNA at the time was like, you needed to be a researcher. And I first came across a lab which were already testing actually a few genes. So it was a couple of genes, far from the amount of genes that we are testing now. And also the price was a lot different. And this is why now, it's also why we have created Omnos, and I'll come to this. But the fast forwarding to this, what I realize is, well, an athlete is all about his performance. It's quite, a sort of altruistic thing to do, personal thing to do. And I wanted to give a bit more of an impact on, how we can use all this knowledge to help people to take control of their health, because and this is where the whole idea of Omnos or Gen Smart, which was the company I had before, came from, is we are dying of diseases that are totally preventable by changing your lifestyle, your diet, your environment. And this is where I created my practice of sort of moving from the conditioning of athletes to helping everybody to take control of their health, by looking at their bioindividuality. And the starting point from that was obviously genetic DNA, because it's just an amazing journey of understanding what you are made of, to create this relationship with your own biology. And I invite everybody to do that, because it really, makes understand who you are, what you are made of, is very interesting. And obviously, looking at someone's DNA, we can understand what are, what are your needs, what are your predisposition to certain diseases. But also what we understood the last decade is your genes are not your fate, okay? And it comes at the right time, in a sense that it's not because you have predisposition to certain diseases, so that's your genotype, that you will necessarily develop what we call the phenotype, so the disease associated to it. And that's very important to understand. But actually, the last part of the equation here, you are responsible for. So you are actually in charge of this gene expression, so to speak. So you have, your genes have a behavior. And I'm not going to go too much into epigenetic and tagging, bothering with the science, but to make it very simple, we are all very different, and we are 99.9% the same, okay? But the 0.1% left is actually a huge number. And if I'd like to explain, actually, if that's okay, the little story, of the very, very big in the very, very small. Because if you look at someone like us, right, we are made of, you probably know that, but 37 trillion cells, right? That's not millions, billions, but trillions. It's how big the world inside us is. And if you zoom on those cells, you take one cell, you look into this, and there's inside, the chromosomes, and you zoom again, and you go into the nucleus, and then the chromosome, and then the chromosome, you go into what we call DNA strand, right? And in each and every single cells, and remember, I've got 37 trillion here, you've got 6 foot tall of DNA, right? 6 foot tall. So you've got the size of a Leonardo DiCaprio in every single cell. So it's enough to go, if I throw this into the sky, it's enough to go to the moon and back twice, right? That's that much information that you have in your body. And obviously, because it's a huge number in terms of cells and genes that you have, we once decided to understand this, and the research has been done, and it's the Genome Project. And from this, we really understood the difference between all this. So you have a code, which is your gene code, which is basically made of letters, okay, A, C, G, and T. And a gene is in the sentence of this long code, right? And each of those genes will code for something, to make a protein and to do something. So that's the obvious thing. So I've got brown eye, brown hair, dark hair. So that I have genes that is obvious that codes for something. but they also code for things as how I'm going to absorb macronutrients. So let's say fat, let's say carbohydrates and protein. How I'm going to absorb, transport, or bind them. So I'm going to assimilate all this. And then micronutrients, my vitamins, B12, vitamin C, we talk about immunity lately. So vitamin C, zinc, selenium, all those things will be determined on how you absorb, how you transport them, or all this sort of thing based on your genetic. So it's very important for someone to look into this, to really understand what you are made of. And the magic is, when I first started this, it was costing a fortune and only top athletes could afford this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But now it's accessible to everyone because the price of a genetic test, the whole genome, you don't need the whole genome, but the whole genome, when we sequenced the first time, was 3.2 billion. Okay. Now you do the same thing for less than $1,000. Next year is probably going to be $500, but you don't even need the whole thing. So you can already divide by 2, and actually we're launching our test at £149, which is a big difference. So it's like you fill up your car in 2003 of petrol, and you wait until now, but you can go to Jupiter and back twice, right? This is how big the difference is in prices. And so that's one thing. And I think, Omnos came from this. First, because I wanted people to become more proactive towards their health, because of the reality here, in a sense that something I've noticed to any of my patients is, once they create this relationship with their own biology, you cannot escape it. You're a lot more engaged, and you try, because you understand and you see the cause and effect. You're sort of like, okay, I'm in charge now, and you understand the whole thing. And also, for the second concept was also because we know that your genes are not your fate, so you're in charge, and you can actually regain control of your health by making those changes. And so it's quite a powerful thing, and that's what when I created Gen Smart. My first book was my first book was Cracking Your Health Code, and I was explaining all this, that your genes are not your fate, and I give a methodology to optimize your health this way based on your genetic. But the reality is, your genetic is one thing, but it's static. So it's amazing to understand already, and actually to clear the path to your optimum health, in the sense that you avoid the guesswork. So you don't have to follow trends anymore, because let's say we talk about keto diet, which is an amazing thing, to be in ketosis, especially if you're predisposed to certain diseases like Alzheimer and this sort of things, or you have epilepsy, or and all of this has been proven. But if you have certain gene variants, like ApoE genes, and you need to be careful, because the fat absorption is not optimal. And if you have too much fat, you're actually being in a constant state of keto diet can actually not be optimal. So you can use this keto diet as a base, but tweak it to optimize it to yourself, right? Is the same for veganism, for example. Contrary as certain lobbying, I would say, and I might make some enemy there, but it's a fact. There's lobbying for carnivore, there's lobbying for veganism. It's not for everyone. Your bioindividuality, and we've seen it, this 0.1% that makes you unique is huge. And the certain genes like FSDA1, for example, which has to do with omega-3 and omega-6 ratio. If you want to become vegan, but you have this gene variation, the result will be in a few weeks, you're going to start being inflamed, and you're going to get sick. So either if you do it by choice, as a cultural choice, because we understand the importance of taking care of the environment, and I'm actually, it's Health Day today, and I'm actually, totally for that. But you know, you need to tweak it again to your to track with like an element test that will tell you what are this ratio in omega-6 and omega-3. So, and this is where I come to Omnos, because on GenSmart, so my first platform was all about taking genetic information, making personalized recommendation for you. But again, when genetic is amazing to tell you about doing right now, right? And this we need to understand if you want to be healthy. And what's more actually is if we can understand where you are coming from with a lifestyle assessment, what you are made of with a genetic test, and understand exactly what is going on into your body right now with functional testing, things like microbiome, what we look at, you know, your gut behavior, but also we go beyond microbiome. We also look at parasite, viruses, pathogens that you may have, overgrowth of bacteria and all these sort of things. If you look at your minerals and vitamin ratio, for example, if you look at the pollutants that you have in your body, if you look at things like your hormone balance with hormone test, what you are made of right now, and connect all those dots together, then you have a really complete holistic picture of your health, like what you are made of now. And this platform that we are launching soon on the 24th of May is all about this. Is all about giving you a scientifically validated dashboard of your health, that you will have, like, you know, sort of like you know, send a rocket to the NASA. You have all those buttons that you can tweak yourself, and it's pretty powerful because the way we've done things is by connecting the dots. Nothing works in isolation. So this is what we are the first one to do, really, is all those tests exist, but they are in isolation. So I do a DNA test. What does it mean in relation to a hormone test that I've just done right now? How do I connect the two to get you know, a powerful insight? And this is what we've done. And on top of that, we've basically put together recommendation for each and every pathways that might be imbalance, for example. So we help you to rectify those pathways to, you know, to come back into a better health state. Because what we know from all those degenerative diseases is and this is all the things that we are dying from. So all the 4 killers, for example. So we talk about type 2 diabetes, we talk about heart health, strokes, we talk about Alzheimer's or dementia, and cancers, right? All of those diseases are multifactorial, okay? So it's very important to understand that the way, and this is what I want people to become proactive and to have a tool to do it, is because when, you know, and I'm not finger pointing here at the NHS because they are amazing, and you can see it right now with what's happening with the COVID-19. However, it's not a proactive wellness sort of institution. They're amazing as acute medicine, which means basically that if you get hit by a car or you get infected by COVID-19, you will have amazing doctors to save your life. However, the disease that we are dying of today, and there's a lot more people dying every day of, for example, type 2 diabetes, which is totally preventable, than the COVID-19, let's make it clear, and always has been. Those are multifactorial, and they are things that can be prevented. So you need to learn that what are those imbalances, what are those points that I can have an interaction with, have you know, intervention of stopping this imbalance before it becomes a big problem.
Yeah.
So it's looking at all those small issues, all
Yeah.
those small things that you can take control of yourself with the power of nutrition, power of lifestyle, or changing your environment, to then release the NHS. Disease they cannot really deal with, because it's almost impossible. Let's be clear, it's almost impossible to cure cancer, to cure degenerative disease. Is very complex because they're so multifactorial. And I think should be in our hands, and we should definitely help the NHS to release the burden. And yeah, this is the idea behind the Omnos. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's very and I do like the word holistic. That's how I practice as a therapist anyway, Thomas. And you're right. I think I said with Shania on the interview we did that the NHS is great for acute emergency, but it's certainly not coordinated for chronic health issues, which is kind of what we're talking about here. So on your platform, you've talked about the different pathways. I've had a quick look. I mean, I have been part of kind of looking at GenSmart, so I'm aware of what the platform was going to look like in the first instance. What you've managed to do is put these areas together so people will get indicators about how well they're doing in certain areas. It's a little bit like you've gamified health. You've kind of said, okay, score here.
It's actually the whole idea. You're right. I think I was quite introverted as a kid, and I used to play a lot of video games, and I always thought, like, why we don't have, I don't know why, since I'm very young, why we don't have of inside our body something that can tells you, just like you would see on the games, like the level you are at, all these sort of things about all your different ratios and all different things. Now, growing up and having studied nutrigenomics and everything, I realized, wow, actually it will be a lot of buttons because we are very complex. And we yet don't understand everything, right? So, but it's not because we don't have the answer to everything now, but we shouldn't get started to try to find the answers and to try to actually put things out there. And actually, we understand well enough now in terms of, so if we look at the genetic side of thing, well, let's start with a self-assessment, for example, about your questionnaires. If I understand from your self-assessment already that you have certain symptoms, but you have a light, like, small headaches or this sort of thing, things that are data points and will might direct us into something. And then I go into your genetics, and I understand from your genetic uniqueness that you don't absorb, I don't know, fat very well, or you don't detox very well. So your body's ability to remove toxin is not optimal. And I understand that you live from your self-assessment, that you live in a city like London, but actually you live, because of geolocalization, we know that you live near a busy road, which is one of the highest polluted in London. And those things, plus the things of the headache, plus the things of memory loss, this sort of thing, plus joints aching sometimes. Already all of these dots gets connected. Okay, so we have maybe high level of toxicity, this ability to remove toxin which is diminished, right? And the symptoms, and then let's have a look at now. Maybe the next test you should do is to look at your toxic profile. Look at what you have in your body right now in terms of toxicology. And there's a lot of things we can do. And in terms of biomarkers in our platform, we'll be looking at over 1,000 of different biomarkers from different tests, right? But if we go into toxicology, we look at things like, some of them would be car fumes. And we have made a range, which is easy for you to understand. The normal range might be, 500. And your reading is 1,600, which is way above normal. So that's interesting to know, because on one side, you know that you live near busy roads,
Yeah.
On the other side, you understand that your body to remove toxin is very difficult, so you might need to help it. And on the other side, you understand that actually the ratio of car fumes related, I mean, toxins related to car fumes are way too high, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that gives you a straight line of what you need to do. I mean, we give you the recommendation, but there's a lot of things you can do from there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can move away from this
Yeah.
busy street. If it's not something you will do in a short term, then you can eat type of food that will help to your detoxification pathways to work optimally. So we talk about cruciferous vegetables like asparagus, broccoli, every sort of things. You look at alliums, garlic, onions, this sort of thing. And then maybe why not, to speed up things like supplements with like NAC with like, glutathione, which will support your phase 2 of detoxification pathways. And why not, you need also to remove all those toxins. So once you have given the body, the tools for your liver to process and sort of bind those toxins and remove them, you need to sweat it out. So you need to move, you need to exercise a bit more, you need to maybe go to a sauna to remove all those things. And why not before going to a sauna, because there's a lot of heavy metals into those car fumes toxins. Why not trying to have like heavy metal binding, like, things like charcoal, for example,
Yeah.
activated charcoal before going into the sauna. So it will enhance the ability to bind those toxins and remove. So then you become aware on one side, and secondly, you're being told what to do on how to do it. And then 3 months down the line, you would test this, and wow, amazingly, you're back to let's say 500 on your car fume toxins, right?
Mm.
That is amazing, because long term of this, we know it's potentially lead to cancer. It's not the single thing that could, but if there's other things, and we know there is, well, this is maybe your priority, and then we tackle the other ones, well, a bit less of a priority, but still. But all of them together, they are multifactorial causes that could lead to the degeneration of, mutation or this sort of things in the long term. So this is what we created from us, and we make it very visual, and we made it very interesting people to interact with, and we're going to start putting a lot of content around this. Yeah, because I think our health should not only take place, health optimization should not take place in hospital. It should be in wellness center, or even from your home, from your office, or just at the palm of your hand with your phones, because we all have those tools now to do it, and we also have the science that can back everything up. So when you link the access to all those information that are scientifically validated, and you merge this with technology, you can make people a lot more proactive towards their health.
Mm-hmm. I'm really excited. This is, for me, it's centralizing. So I'm just thinking about, I've got, I don't know, 5, 6 different apps where I'm tracking different things, and yours is kind of centralizing it in one place. But also, I'm hearing this is really empowering for people. So the previous episode that I did with Shania, we talked about this gives you the power to take your health into your own hands, rather than leaving it up to that specialist in the white coat that you go to visit. And
Exactly.
it actually gives people the power to do something. I will say, in therapy, that's not always easy, because people don't always want to face their problems. So once people do take these tests, it's going to give them something that they then should take control of. So I'm going to steer this just for a moment, Thomas, so right now people are in COVID, and we kind of talked about what I think is a big crisis at the moment. Was it was quite interesting actually. My 24-year-old said to me, just as we went into lockdown, he said, I went into the local supermarket and the stuff that had been left was the antioxidants, the alliums. And I started laughing, thinking, well, definitely I'm getting my message through, because he's starting to talk like me now. But he was saying it was so interesting to walk around and see that the foods that were taken off the shelf in that stressed state, so this is where people are not thinking, their prefrontal cortex is offline, and they've gone for comfort foods, those high level carbs. And you know, what do you propose, suggest, think, or even predict is going to happen with what people are doing currently with their health, diet, lifestyle?
It's a very good question. You know, it's like everything, you know, whatever happens, you have the decision of you know, reacting, and it's never too late on how you're going to react. But we're definitely going through interesting time, and I'm following this with a bit with passion almost, because I think that those things needs to happen almost, and they do happen. You know, the sort of events that actually freeze the world as it's running. And you know, whether it's presidential election that you're like shocked of the results, or whether it's you know, World War, you know, which are very sad. But then you always have lesson, and right now the COVID-19, you always have lesson to learn from those. And I think right now what we should do is to step back, and because we all have been stepping back, and look at what this has brought. And I think it's amazing if you look, maybe because it's my mentality, I'm quite an optimistic person, but what is brought, if you look at the bright side, it's brought an amazing time for us to reflect and to realize a few things. And I think the first thing is how connected we are, right? In the sense that we are one, as you know, wherever you are from, whatever your beliefs are, whatever your, you know, a virus doesn't have borders in his mind, doesn't have any, you know, at the biological level, it's so stupid when you look at, you know, people battling for borders, because, or even if you look out of our little blue dot, you know, it's stupid, because, you know, you just need, you know, to go in a plane and you don't see the borders. But anyway, I'm sidetracking here. But what I'm saying is we all won, and we won humanity. So I really hope that we're going to learn about that. The second thing I think is, because we are so connected, and also one thing that is very important to learn from is how vulnerable we are, in the sense that we are fragile, you know, and it's funny how, you know, our body is amazing in terms of, you know, this almost like intelligence, wisdom, body wisdom that he has to adapt to its environment and to repair, and, you know, things that we take for granted that is being done constantly. But nevertheless, we're vulnerable, and we shouldn't take this for granted. We should take this as a gift, as something that is amazing to have, and therefore we should nurture it even more. So that leads to my maybe third point, which is basically we should really, you know, now stepping back after what's happened and really take control of our health. Really is the only thing, no matter what, that is actually the most precious to you. If you don't have your health, and you can see it now, nothing works. It's just the way it is. It's important things. Without energy, you cannot function. And you know, and I've been in touch with people who you know, who are with diseases, or who have like those degenerative diseases, and to understand that living in a state of comorbidity is not something we want. And unfortunately, if you look at the way we live now, if you look at elderly, if you look at people above 65 years old, if they don't have one, they have up to 2 degenerative disease. And between the time where they're getting old to the time they die, they live in this state of comorbidity, where they have to, with, you know, minimize capability of doing things,
Yeah, yeah,
minimize health, low energy, which is really not how we want to do. And especially because we know again that this is preventable. And now we have the knowledge, we have the understanding, and as faster the technology advance and as faster the prevention, also the intervention of things that works, if it's informed and targeted, can be very efficient. So I think it's time for us to now really be proactive and get into the path of together, you know, as changing things are wired in a sense that we should move all together from a proactive, um, you know, healthcare system rather than a reactive one. And I think, you know, and this is one of the subject of my soon to come book, Smart Health, which I hope to finish, you know, and launch somewhere around September. But it's all about that. Is now we have this amazing. We live in time where we have amazing technology, uh, amazing science,
mhm,
and if we link the two together, we can really create a new ecosystem, a new health architecture where
yeah,
we are at the center of it. So it's decentralized. We can democratize, so it doesn't have to be in hospital. It can be from our phone. And we just need the third thing, which is a legislation that help us carry this forward. But I think now with this, maybe there will be some change because they realize, and there's a lot of talk about it now about the COVID-19, which is actually the COVID-19 is, yeah, it is an aggressive virus, but actually with such in a poor immunity, poor health, and most people who are dying of it um, already have conditions that could have been prevented. Now, it's not their fault, okay? So there is maybe some lifestyle choices, but it's also all about the exposure. It's about, on one side, the government responsibility to educate people about
mhm,
being more
yeah,
proactive toward their health. And on our side, people like me who are entrepreneur in this field is to make things accessible. But for people themselves, for us in general, is to be proactive towards, is to use those tools, is to become more proactive and do things that, you know, on a daily basis, learning new skills or using things that, you know, yeah, anyway, to be more proactive towards your health.
I absolutely agree, Thomas, and I've noticed the fact that we have the technology. I'm now seeing there's many more posts appearing now. Whilst it's helpful, and it is in an age of information, misinformation, and disinformation.
Mm,
I'm seeing lots and lots of posts about now. People are beginning to understand that we need vitamin D, that we need you know, we need to have
yeah.
vitamin C, we need to have selenium, zinc, and which, funnily enough, you mentioned earlier. And it's really interesting that I'm seeing lots of people are beginning to talk
Yeah.
about these minerals and vitamins that we need. But actually, the bit that's missing is, and it goes alongside looking after
Hmm.
your health, making sure that you're moving, you know, looking after your diet, your sleep, your
Yeah.
stress levels. So for me, there's something about we are moving slowly, I think, towards
Hmm.
that education. But right now, it seems to be more on social media from people like yourselves, you know, the biohacking community, health
Hmm.
summits. It seems that it's beginning, and I'm thinking that whilst we're all at home with COVID, a lot more of us are spending a lot more time on social media, and you know, we are being slowly. Yeah, slowly moved towards this information, but
Yeah.
at the moment we're not quite there yet, I don't think. But I think that it's positive.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as long as we move somewhere, it's a bit like a basketball game, right? If you keep the ball, then nothing's happening. But if you keep passing the ball, you're more likely to shoot a point, right?
Good
What I
metaphor.
mean is, what I mean is like, you know, actually, there's more and more moving, and the more people move, the more people it brings. And this is the magic about the community feel of this. And you mentioned things like, you know, biohackers, you know, biohacking, which, you know, for too long, they have been considered as sort of like the piracy of, a piracy group, right? And sometimes for good reason, because there were some crazy experiments being done.
Yeah.
But now there's all the scientific community joining the biohacking community in some sort. And if you look at events like the biohacking summit, so the health optimization summit, which you just mentioned, this becomes a legitimate way of doing it, because it has, from piracy, this is the navy, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because you do have renowned scientists with real science, with a real community, which is driven by health optimization under one roof, and it's pretty amazing. And I think this slowly is contributing to start changing the opinion. But there's nothing stronger, I think, than to change the public opinion. There's nothing stronger than a mass of people, ringing the bell to the government, because that's the only way you can change things. When there's enough mass of people, and maybe this is my French Revolution side of thing, but I think it's time we get out there and we scream that from the roof, right? But we need this new architecture change, where we decentralize everything, where we make wellness accessible to anyone and effective for everyone, and that is it's beautiful words, but I think we're getting there slowly. And tools like we have built is our vehicle of it. So it's possible. We're getting there.
Yeah, well, like you, I'm really I have a positivistic attitude here, as well as kind of the positive attitude. That one of the things I've been doing is making quite a bit of noise in my profession. We deal with emotional health and psychological health, but we haven't brought in the other elements. And the reason I got into coming and working with you in the first place is because we were using some of the terminology from nutrigenetics, some of the terminology from some of the science. And one of the things I've noticed is that trauma actually has an impact on, and we know this from like the ACEs studies, but trauma has an impact on how people are, epigenetically affected. And right now, what I'm actually watching as a psychotherapist is there is this worldwide trauma. And out of this worldwide trauma, those post-trauma decisions will have an impact on how people deal with their health. And I think this is where definitely, just being able to give my clients and being able to say, well, actually, there's a location you can go and you can have your test, or I can work with you in this particular way. That's going to increase the ability of a person to really take hold of their health from an individual perspective. It's not being driven by, pretty much sitting and trying to talk it out. It's about saying, here's here's the tools, and then allowing the person to do that. So your platform will effectively coach people in what decisions they need to make.
Yeah, it's all about making the informed decision, and in real time, which is the good thing about it. And also, you talk about those trackers. You will be able to plug those in. So the way it works, it's sort of artificial intelligence, and then the algorithm is actually taking all those inputs and making the best decision for you. Because let's be clear again, and the reason why we wired this with artificial intelligence and even some sort of like machine learning, but that's the complicated stuff at the back end, but you don't see, is because, again, multifactorial. You just have to look at, if I give an example of how complex everything is. All what happens in the body right now, there's millions of calculations happening right now in seconds, right? In the cells, or if you look at I don't know if you've ever seen sort of the metabolism map of a cell, which basically the things that happens in a cell at this very moment. It's millions of stuff, and that's the thing we know. We don't even know about the things we don't know, and the things we don't know, we don't know. So it's very it's a huge thing. But that being said, it doesn't mean that, and with the technology of today, and we talk about artificial intelligence, who are now already able to calculate much faster than us and finding the right solution, are keeping improving in doing this very such thing. If you start connecting all the dots, putting the input and they give the output, you come to later having a tool that will be automated your real-time intervention health, if you wish, about optimizing your health in real time. And I might go a bit futuristic here.
That's okay.
But if we go, but trust me, and I think it's the title of a book by one of your idol as well, faster than the future is coming faster than you think. Yeah. And you know, if you want to know how fast it's coming, you need to read this book. It's brilliant. But yeah, I mean, things are accelerated at a really fast pace. And what I'm saying is, within let's say 3 years time, let's go into 5 years, right? In 5 years time, you'll be definitely, and already now through our platform, you'll be able to choose your food, for example, thanks to our food list by a scoring system based on what needs to, you know, what will work for you, right? So I'm giving you a bit of an example, and it might sound a bit crazy, you know, but trust me, it will be possible in 5 years time. You can put your glasses, which are smart glasses. Basically, you have some sort of like augmented reality things on it. Go shopping to your, you know, Planet Organic, because we want to shop organic, to optimize your health. And you know, you could see actually right now what is needed for you to be doing. So if it's something that is on your shopping list, which again has been sort of chosen for you, you picked up the thing you want, and it gives you a score like this is 95% for you, okay? And the reason, you want to know about the reason, you just ask and your AI will tell you why you should have this, because of this and this and this and this reason, based on tests that you have done, based on your genetic, based on the environment you are in, because you had a workout yesterday, and you're a bit dehydrated, so and this has a rich mineral content, for example, this sort of thing, right? And then you go, you know, you go off walking from this shop and you see this 100% chocolate, dark chocolate, and because we know that, you know, you need a greater need of magnesium, you know, this is 100% score, and also because it knows that you've been talking about it to your friend, you know, lately. So this is the world we're going to live in, and I think this will allow us to really have real-time intervention, or you know, to our health. And things like the COVID-19, for example, it could even be managed. Like right now, they all, you know, because this is what politics do, is it's all, you know, oh, you've done it wrong, oh, I could have done better, and this is how we should do. But the reality is, like, it's not going to come from them, just like, you know, the new health architecture are not going to come from them, you know, because we're all battling about health insurance and all these things. The best healthcare system, you know, is as part of the election. But the reality is, you know, everything will be wired, and it's all going to be technology. You'll have cities which will be smart in a way that they will be connected. And, you know, if there is people getting viruses, you could have almost like you have now with the meteorology, you know, the forecast. You could have a forecast of the spread, and you could be having intervention that are a lot more in advance of what it should be. And you could also, you know, in an environment, and actually already the NHS does that, in knowing, and I was quite amazed by it actually. Uh, I went through a horrible episode, and I don't wish this to anyone. My son had a sort of virus when he was only it was only 11 months, I think, and he got this virus which cut his breath out. And he couldn't breathe. And those things, we have it as well. You just get a bit of fever. We call it a bug. But when you're a child, I think it's the croup virus.
Yeah.
Because this gut gets inflamed, you cannot breathe. So panicking, going into, obviously couldn't breathe. So the emergency came straight away with the ventilator and everything. But they knew what it was because they had in the surrounding a raise of this thing, right? So, and is a symptom, so they knew what it was. But what I mean, cutting the long story short, is they had a sort of forecast of what's happening, but this will get even better. So based on this forecast, then you could link that to what you need to combat this. So immunity, we talk a lot about immunity now. So your system, your ecosystem could actually tell you what to eat to improve your immunity, and make food recommendations that are actually higher in zinc, for example, or higher in selenium.
Yeah.
Why not having those mushrooms, because they're adaptogens that are actually going to improve your immunity. You're going to have all these sort of things. A cold shower, have a 30-day cold shower challenge, because we know that cold exposure strengthens immunity. So all those things could be done prior to this. So then when this COVID-19, and I hope it won't come back, but it probably will, come back. If you get it, you're in a better condition, to fight it. Okay, because your body knows how to do that, but your immune system can be overloaded. And we talk about boosting is the wrong word. It's all about balancing your immune system. You don't boost the immune system. I like to say that.
Yeah, I think that's
because,
important, actually. That's really important.
yes.
Something
So,
about you can't make it any better than when it gets to being good.
yeah, exactly. Well, because if you boost too much your system, it's overeat, and actually is one of the conditions that happens of you can have overeat too much, but actually you can get to organ failure even. And so you don't want this to happen. You want to balance it, and it's all about, again, it's multifactorial. So we talk about those adaptogens, those vitamins and minerals that will strengthen your immune system. But you also have a lot of other things, right? It's also multifactorial. If you have leaky gut, for example, because of poor nutrition or conditions or whatever, food intolerance that you don't know that you keep having, that creates inflammation in your gut, you're already in a very bad conditions, actually, because your immunity will be definitely damaged, will be, not optimal because of this condition. So if you know about this, you need to fix this first. So you need to go through a gut program, and what we call a 5R gut program, which is something like our platform will pick up and will tell you what to do to optimize those pathways.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's time we look at integrative medicine. That approach, which looks at us as a whole ecosystem, and yeah, from to prep us from our environment, because our environment will always have this sort of things. We all have to have, if it's not COVID-19, it will be something else. And we need to adapt to this, and this is what is evolution anyway. So yeah,
that's why I like the title of your book, actually, this smart health, because actually we're talking about optimal. We're not talking about overindulgence. We're looking at how do you have an impact so that you are almost, I'm going to go performing, so this is your body performing at a level that is healthy for you. And this is what you were talking about, that bio-individuality. This isn't a one size fits all. It's pretty much like the trauma theories that I have. There isn't one single trauma theory that I apply to a single client. It's always about what's the history,
Yeah,
where are they now, what are they capable of doing, how do I work with them?
exactly. Yeah.
And you kind of eclectically take what's needed for that person, and then the
Yeah.
next person has something very different. So
Yeah.
I'm
But that's the important bit, definitely, because you know, like if you look at this morning, I was seeing, for example, something sort of blog from, you know, the COVID-19 food pyramid, and sorry, but it sort of made me laugh because it was, you know, anyway. But what I'm saying is, this should start with this pyramid. Okay, like if you look at the food pyramid, it should like start looking at your bioindividuality from your genetics, from your biomarkers, so you know your individuality on biomarkers,
yeah.
and from your environment, and then only you you can optimize this. Okay,
Mm,
but if you don't do this first layer, it's just guesswork. It's just, you know, and some of those things that be recommended, I was looking at it, and some actually I'm intolerant to. So it's going to make me, you know, more likely to have this COVID-19,
mm,
or I mean, more likely not to process it properly because my immunity will fight that. Because there was something like, you know, as a recommendation, which was a bit weird to have it here, like soya. Soya is a histamine-rich food, and I've got histamine um, uh, predisposition not to deal with histamine-rich food, and I do get that. So if I just follow this to the line, actually I will have an immune reaction to it, right? So I will have an intolerance reaction,
yeah.
and so that was not designed for me. And to come back to what you said, because it doesn't look at me as a unique person that I am in terms of my bioindividuality, in the state I am now, the lifestyle I have, for example, you know. So if I was looking again at the diet, like I'm sorry, I'm training quite a lot. I mean, lately because we have more time. You know, I'm doing yoga in the morning, and in the evening I'm doing some kettlebells and stuff. And if I follow this diet, like I'll be starving and probably in calorie deficiency. And you know, so this is what I mean. It's not personalized to me,
Mhm.
and that needs to change. So we need to have again this approach which is very personalized because we can do that now.
Yeah. Yes. So wow, we have packed so much into this. I'm thinking, is
I'm
there
talking
any?
too much. Sorry.
Not at all, Thomas. This is one of the things. So I'm finding myself where I was talking about technology right at the beginning of the podcast. I've started to move in towards the health integration because it's become my purpose, if that makes sense. Because what
Mhm.
I've noticed is working with my clients up until 2 years ago, I was working with trauma from a perspective that I looked at, yes, there's epigenetic impacts, but I was stumped. I could only go so far. And as of 2 years ago, the work that I've been able to do with my clients is based on all of this. So I'm now looking at all of the aspects that, you know, the pillars of health, as I call it, that there has to be a holistic approach. So, you know, the fact that we've just talked holistically for the past, well, I mean, you've talked holistically for the past 45, 50 minutes, something like that. I think it's fantastic. It's so much information for people to listen to that what they can do is go and get your first book, you know, the health, unlocking your health code.
Well,
Um,
they can email me and I'll send them to them the free digital version. Yeah, I can. I'm more than happy to send the
yeah.
free digital version.
Well, I will put your details into the show notes. And also, I've noticed that you did a bit of the hero's journey in it in terms of when you wrote the book. So it's
Yeah,
very, very nice, very easy for people to read. Um, and then what they can do is they can also come to the platform, have a look at Omnos, and start
yeah,
to, you know, take the steps to actually implement their own health journey.
yeah.
Um,
There's one thing that anybody can do now is to go on omnos.me and just to create an account and already go through the questionnaires. And the questionnaires are, made by our team of functional doctors. Shania has participated to this. She's, as you might know, she's part of the team, and this already gives you a really good insight on. Obviously, it's not objective in the sense that it's not with tests, but it already tells you, highlight what you should be doing based on certain symptoms that you have. So you already get good value for just signing up and doing the questionnaires.
Yeah, well,
that's all free. So
that's something I will put in the bottom of as well. So yeah, thank you for spending this time with me, Thomas, and really going into what we can do to actually take control of basically our own destiny,
of our health. Yes, exactly.
So good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye.